The brand new banners for the second half of Genshin Impact have been revealed, and they honestly look awesome. Genshin Impact has clearly been planning this banner to maximize revenue, and we're going to go through each part to make sure that you take advantage of what's best for you and that you don't take the bait. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Sometimes when I'm playing, I know that I made a dodge, switch, or input in time, but the game just didn't register it properly. And often, depending on this issue, it is because of my high ping. But fortunately, Gear Up Booster is here and it works. It is free to download and try for yourself. It works with mobile, PC, and console. All you have to do is select your game and press boost. It will reduce your ping. You can see right now I have 91, and then after activating Gear Up Booster, we are all the way down to 65. I even did a switching comparison before and after, and as you can see, I'm just spamming switch back and forth on both of the non-boosted and the boosted side. And as you can see, the boosted side wins by a long shot. It is a very noticeable improvement. Reducing your ping could even be a DPS increase for your account if you're using an artifact set like the Echoes of the Offering, using certain DPSs like Chlorand, or trying to make sure you don't lose Cryo App when swapping from Citlali to Mavuika. Gear Up Booster could increase your damage and just make the game more enjoyable to play. It is especially effective if you're playing the game from a different physical location to the server that your game is on. Gear Up Booster is extremely secure, trusted by well-known creators and professional esports teams for games like Overwatch, Fortnite, or League of Legends, and of course enjoyed by millions of Genshin Impact players around the world. Please check out the link below. Again, absolutely free to try out. And let me know how much your ping was reduced by down in the comments. Thanks to Gear Up Booster for sponsoring the channel once again. So first off, the 5 stars. Mavuika, Emilie, and we will go over the weapon banner and the 4 stars as well. Mavuika is a meta pull. I recently did my tier list. You can go check that out. And Mavuika is, in my opinion, the best character in the game. She has a ton of teams where she's best in slot in. She not only works as an on-field DPS herself, but she has off-field supportive capabilities with her burst buffing damage bonus, providing pyro from off-field. She has amazing quality of life as a DPS, having great AoE, not being interruptible, not needing energy to use her burst. The only downside to her for some people is that they don't enjoy her character, don't enjoy her bike, don't enjoy her design, don't enjoy her gameplay, whatever it may be. To those people, I wouldn't tell you to get Mavuika, but I would say if you enjoy playing certain DPSs, you may consider getting her anyways. I'm not saying that you have to or that you should, but it is a consideration. The characters in A tier here are ones that I would highly recommend getting Mavuika for. Yeah, I Overload, Navia dual DPS with Mavuika and Shilonen, Chlorand Mavuika, Electro Chevreuse, as a burning enabler for Kenichi, as a sub DPS, and just off-field pyro for Chaska. And then again, overload support / dual DPS for Veresa. These ones, even if you don't like Mavuika, I would highly recommend at least considering it, at least looking into it, because the damage difference for these characters and the quality of life difference is really, really big. The way that these characters work and that their teams can be built, they're not generally going to be playing second fiddle too much to Mavuika. I think you're only really melting Mavuika's burst with Chaska and some Kenichi teams with Escoffier. So it's not like generally for these characters that Mavuika is being outshone or is outshining your main DPS. It really is a dual DPS situation where of course Mavuika is, you know, the better character on the team, but these characters have downtime that can fill. They really benefit from the buff and the off-field pyro application, and it's just very, very valuable. The characters in B, it's still valuable for, so Wriothesley Melt, either forward or reverse, Raiden Overload, and then Mualani Vape. The thing about these is that they have other options that are just as good. So although Mavuika is a good pull for these characters and definitely is a good support for these characters, I would personally prefer Wriothesley Freeze and recommend Wriothesley Freeze. It's just a lot more consistent. Raiden has double Hydro, National, and other overloaded stuff that's not Mavuika stuff. And depending on the situation, her best pyro might be Mavuika, but it also might be Pyro Traveler, and it also might be Xiangling if we're talking AoE. Of course, Mavuika is amazing as a DPS herself, but I did want to like take a quick look at her support capabilities. We're going to be making an Ask Jello Mavuika as probably our next video, so we'll go into more depth on all the different teams. But I wanted to throw this in there. If you're looking to wish for Mavuika as a dual DPS for your other character, these ones I would highly recommend, and these ones I would kind of recommend. Other characters, generally speaking, it's not that she wouldn't work as a dual DPS, but she might really outshine what they're doing. Like Ningguang obviously is very similar to Navia, but like Mavuika is going to be doing almost all the damage on that team. So like the strong characters, they don't synergize all that well with dual DPS Mavuika, like Arlecchino or Skirk. They're strong characters, but they don't synergize with that, or they're just outshone by Mavuika. So Ito's best team technically is Mavuika, Furina, Xilonen, but like it doesn't really, that would be the best team for him, but it doesn't like really enhance his kit. It doesn't really, he's not meant to be that kind of dual DPS character, whereas these characters, they kind of are. So that's if you're getting her as a supportive role, but what if you want to main DPS her? So obviously we all know Xilonen, Bennett, Citlali is her best team. Generally speaking, we all know this. You can replace IANSANE for Xilonen. You may or may not know that characters like Kazuha, Diona, probably the best alternative options, Sucrose, or also cryo options. Escoffier, Rosaria, Chongyun, these are all very, very viable replacements for Xilonen. And Citlali provides enough cryo that you can melt with any of these available. They all have different tech that make them good. We'll talk about this more in detail on the Mavuika video, but suffice to say this last slot is very replaceable, although Xilonen is definitely the best. But a lot of you might wonder, well, what if you don't have Citlali or don't have access to Bennett? It's the same kind of thing. If you don't have Bennett, you can just put one of these characters here, right? It's the same sort of thing. You're going to lose more from swapping out Bennett than you are from Xilonen here, but it's still fine. All of these are still, as long as you're buffing your Mavuika and not interfering with the melt reaction, you're fine. Cryo and Hydro together is not the best idea on Mavuika because you're going to get Shatter instead of Vape if you end up freezing an opponent or applying the elements and they conflict with each other and then you don't get any reaction. So you don't necessarily want to do cryo or a Hydro with your cryo, but any of these are fine. And there's other options that are fine too. Auroron is also going to be fine. But what about if you don't have Citlali? Well, now we're talking about other stuff. So you can do Rosaria or Escoffier for a melt, for the melt enabler. If you have an Ayaka laying around and you're not really using her, it's surprisingly effective. You build just tons and tons of ER on her and it works. Like she applies enough cryo to easily melt burst and a few charge attacks, so it's very, very competitive, to be honest. There was a time I was testing every single team in every abyss, so you can see Mavuika, Bennett, Xilonen, Mavuika, Bennett, Citlali, Bennett, Xilonen, Citlali, Bennett, Diona, Citlali, Bennett, Sucrose, all got the same time. That's not to say that they're all as good as each other, because Xilonen definitely pulls ahead, or Sucrose, depending on what you do. But in short abyss chambers where you're two rotating anyways, the difference is animation time, not damage. So even though, you know, the down version might do less damage, maybe overall the clear time ends up being the same in most situations. This is with Risley. This is Mavuika melting from off field. This is the Ayaka enabling Mavuika to melt. This is Ganyu enabling Mavuika to melt. You can get creative. A lot of people have challenged me saying that melt is the only good team, and so I always show them Vape with Furina. It's amazing as well. You can do Vape with Yelan or Xingqiu, but it's more annoying. And yes, you can use Kachina instead of Xilonen. It is definitely very cope to do something like this. This is your 4-star team. It's definitely very cope, very hard, very weird, but it does work. Kachina is not going to be able to fill up Mavuika's bar completely, so she can get that powerful burst, because you don't want to stay on her for too long. So you're going to be doing less powerful bursts, but you know, you're still melting. For the second rotation onwards, Mavuika's charging up her own bar as well from doing her charge attacks, so it's fine. You're going to be able, it's enough DPS to 36 star, but it's not going to be fun or comfortable or feel that amazing. And then if you happen to have any constellations of Chevrus, then Overload is going to be a team that you can do as well, because IANSANE is coming on this banner, and you have Rororon for free. So using either of IANSANE and Auroron or both is going to be good here. You can not use Aurora and you can use a different off-field Electro like Fischl or Yai or Clorand or Veressa if you have her. Obviously that's the Overload team if we're talking about DPS Mav. You can use something like Bennett. You're just not going to get very good multi-wave performance, and Mavuika's charge attacks towards the end will fall off in damage because you don't have off-field Electro. But your early stuff will be very powerful, so it should be comparable overall. If you don't end up pulling IANSANE, then Auroran does both. He provides the Night Soul for charging up Mavuika, as well as providing that off-field Electro, so more consistent in multi-wave and for longer rotations. So what I'm saying is you always have lots of options for Mavuika. Even if you don't have her premium stuff, there's still very strong stuff that's free and available. And IANSANE, Bennett, Rosaria, IANSANE's on the banner. I just realized this. You don't have to use Keqing. You don't have to cope with Keqing. This is going to be, you might have to, like, I don't know, do some skill attacks with Mavuika on the first rotation to get up that Night Soul bar so that you can burst. Make sure you do that first. But anyways, this is not a full Mavuika guide. We'll do that in the next video. But all I'm saying is that there's options for anyone to get into Mavuika, and we'll cover those in the next video. Okay, that's Mavuika. Emilie. Emilie is kind of a weird situation. So this is where the conversation of bait and the conversation of Hoyo making these banners at the exact right time to be as attractive as possible is very good, because Emilie is extremely good in the current Stygian Assault for that Lava Dragon character, and it might be very tempting to go for. She will also be very good against the next Stygian Assault with the Papilla, because burning just applies element very, very quickly, and that's how you break down the Papilla's shield. She's a very flexible character. A lot of my Stygian Assault clears ended up being with Emilie because she can just sort of carry anyone to a clear with the Fearless Pyro Dragon. I used her with Wanderer. I used her with Mualani, although Nahida is technically better since she buffs more EM for your personal damage. I used her with Navia. I used her with Kinich. I used her with Arlecchino. But I don't recommend getting a character just for one boss for this version of Stygian Assault, especially if you already have someone like Nahida. Nahida is a great replacement for these teams. Nahida doesn't do as much personal damage, but she can provide Thrilling Tales and buffs EM, neither of which is always the best for whatever DPS you happen to be using, but often at least one of them is going to be very good. Emilie, I would say, even considering the Stygian Assault, I would not recommend her as a meta pull. I would say that it's likely that you'll find a use for her. If you like her, you want to pull her, it's likely that you'll be able to find a character that can use her for these types of elemental checks. Every time I use her, I find she can carry. I find her alone can carry, you know, using Emilie, Bennett, Xiangling, whatever other character can do the DPS required to clear the Abyss by itself. But I still don't recommend her as a meta pull, but I think she's a good pull if you end up liking her. Now, you may be wondering, well, I have Kinich, so isn't she best in slot for Kinich? Yes, she is best in slot. However, and I don't recommend using GC Sim as the Bible. Some of these calcs are not realistic and not actually achievable in game. But if we look at Auroran at Constellation 6, given he's at 92k DPS with Auroran and 93.5 for Emilie. And this one has Emilie at 90. I think this one makes more sense because Emilie's on Deepwood here, whereas she's using her Sig set here. That just shows that Deepwood is good for Emilie, because otherwise you can't get scroll on Mavuika. So this one doesn't seem like worth looking at to me. This is the one that we're looking at. And 93k versus 92k, very, very close. Very, very, very close. I would say with the mixed reliability of GC Sim, this is essentially the same. Granted, again, it is C6 Auroran, but even at C0 is going to be very good. So what I'm kind of saying by showing that is not that Auroran is better than Emilie for Kinich. That's not what I'm saying. I do think Emilie overall is better. However, what is more worth it? Getting a Kinich Constellation or a Kinich weapon, or getting and using Auroran, or getting Emilie? Well, I'm going to say that getting the Kinich Constellation or Auroran is going to be better. What if we get Lunar Burning in the future? Having more of your power on Kinich himself is going to be better, as it gives you room to open up that next slot in the future if there's a future character that might replace Emilie, because she's just not enough ahead of other options to be really worth pulling. It's kind of exactly the same situation as Skirk and Shenhe. I do consider Shenhe to be the best partner for Skirk right now, but it is by such a razor thin margin that I can't justify pulling. It's more worth it to get C1 Kinich, R1 Kinich, C2 Kinich before you consider Emilie. Once you start considering Emilie to be better than Auroran, we're looking at Emilie with her weapon, because her weapon's a big increase for Emilie. So overall, it's hard to actually recommend Emilie for meta reasons. Also, if you are, if you're using Kenichi and you like Emilie and you might want to drop Kenichi in the future, but you still want to have an option for burning, then I guess Emilie kind of makes sense there, but there's no guarantee that lunar burning in the future would even need Emilie. It might just like be an option, but drop them. Just like how, Shen Yun's the plunge character, but Veressa came out as a plunge character and then doesn't use Shen Yun. So I think I don't think that Emilie, the fact that she doesn't buff makes her a risky pull because it's easier to power creep damage than it is to power creep buffing. She'll get boosted in the future if we get a lunar burning buffer that buffs both Emilie and Kenichi, and then we're talking. But if we get a lunar burning character that replaces Emilie, then we're sad. So that's kind of what I'm saying. For Emilie, mostly it's get her if you like her, or if you're already really invested in Kenichi. For the 4 stars, now we are cooking with these 4 stars. IANSANE is an amazing character, not as universal as some others, but if you don't have Shilonen for your Mavuika, or even if you do, IANSANE's amazing. IANSANE's amazing for Kenichi, great for Chaska, great for Veressa, great for Clorand. Can work with some others like Arlecchino. I'd say those are the main things. For Veressa, she can use IANSANE straight out of the box at Constellation 0 with the boosts at Constellation 2 and then 6. For characters that don't move as much, think Clorand and some others, you kind of really want C4 IANSANE to make things work, and C4 is when IANSANE pops off for all the characters that I mentioned. You can check out my 2 IANSANE videos where I tested each constellation of IANSANE. Not my 2, just 1. But I tested each constellation of IANSANE and how well it performed versus all the different teams. The peak Mavuika damage is going to be higher with IANSANE, but especially in something like Stygian Assault where you start with no energy, Shilonen is going to outperform IANSANE even at C6 for most people. I'm working on my Dire 6 clear and I'm not able to get anywhere near with IANSANE as I am with Shilonen. By the way, look at how close I am. Look at that. Look at that. We're gonna get there. As usual, I don't recommend wishing on 5-star banners for 4-star characters, but if IANSANE's a specific upgrade to your team, I mean, getting accidental constellations for Mavuika is not so bad. Her C1 makes her work a lot better with IANSANE, ironically, or maybe craftedly, maybe planned. Sneaky Hoyoverse. That's because she generates Night Soul much faster by herself, or just with less reliance on other teammates with her Constellation 1. So IANSANE's disadvantages with Shilonen kind of get fixed by a Constellation 1 Mavuika, so that's nice. C2 is a massive power boost for Mavuika, so the early constellations are definitely not wasted. Yao these days, not really used. You can use her, I guess, for the Burning Lava Dragon, but I think someone like Kale you get for free applies more Dendro, so that's better. So you're kind of, Yao's kind of out to lunch these days. Aggravate really needs a Chevreuse or a Scoffier. And then, of course, Xiangling, always broken. C4 Xiangling is where your target is. That's when her Pyronado lasts quite a bit longer, so going for C4 Xiangling, again, wishing for 4 stars, always super dangerous, but if you can snag a C4 Xiangling, that is valuable. So 2 out of the 3 units on this banner are super valuable, some of the best 4 stars in the game, and then Yao is just kind of there. And then Mavuika constellations are great. Emilie constellations are pretty good too, but they're still on Emilie, they're C1 is more damage and C2 is Dendro res down, so you can get away without running Deepwood unless the enemy has really high resistances. Now running her signature set, even on teams, well, it's crazy that you don't even run her signature set on a lot of the on the Kenichi teams that you play her on Deepwood, but if you have her C2 or Kenichi C2, then you can run her signature set without losing damage anymore. Not recommended, again, to get Emilie constellations as she's not a meta unit. Mavuika is, so if we're talking, some people want to know about power creep. Is Mavuika going to get power crept? Look, Neuvillette used to be the best character in the game, and he got power crept, but he's still a great unit, and he's still top 5 DPS. He still has 3 teams around 100k DPS, or 95 to 100. He is still a great unit. Even now, sure, he's really bad in this Stygian Onslaught, but he's still a great unit. If you got him specifically for meta, how would you feel? Well, if you didn't like playing him and you got him specifically for meta, I don't even care if he was still meta. That's not a good pull. You don't get characters just for meta. I think that's really bad. So I think he regretted that already, even if he hadn't been power crept. Mavuika is much more ahead of the other characters than Neuvillette was. So even if she got power crept, like if someone came out that was better than her, she would still be in an incredible place. Plus, she's much more of a supportive character. So if you're getting her to support other units, that role is very, very, very unlikely to be power crept because Hoyo simply refuses to give us an off-field pyro. I mean, maybe it's more likely power crept. Maybe we'll get off-field pyro in Nod Cry. They sell you Mavuika now, and then the first character in Nod Cry is an off-field pyro character. Now you regret getting Mavuika as a support to your other characters. So, I mean, that's always possible. It's impossible to know what Hoyoverse is going to do. They could do anything. They could power creep Mavuika with a new DPS next patch. They won't, but they could, or they could not power creep her for the whole patch. My point with all of this is she's so flexible, and she's so much stronger than other characters in the game, especially ones that use the same supports. She's not like crazy above Skirk, but she's crazy above everyone else, and her and Skirk don't share the same supports, so she's so far ahead that it'd be shocking if she felt like a hindrance to an account in 2 or 3 years. That would be shocking, but it's still possible. This is gacha. This is Hoyoverse. So the answer is no, I don't think she'll be power crept, but you still shouldn't get a DPS if you don't like playing them. Play them in the trial. See if you like them. See if that you have a plan for them, if they work for your teams. I'm a fan of pulling with a plan. Don't pull characters just because they're strong. Make sure you actually have a use for them. Same with IANSANE. Don't just get IANSANE if you don't have a plan. Make sure you have a use for her. Okay? Weapon banner. These 4 stars are trash. Like literal garbage. Rust is terrible. Flute is terrible. Dragon's Bane has some uses, but it's pretty much terrible. Rain Slasher is like an alright free-to-play option for Vape. It can be one of the better options, but if you're wishing on this banner, you're not going to be using Rain Slasher. And then Sacrificial Fragments is a pretty good weapon. So we are 1 for 5 on this weapon banner for 4 stars. And the weapon banner, I mean, it's an amazing weapon banner for Emilie wanters because Emilie's weapon is amazing for her, but it's not very good on anyone else unless you're on a burning team like Arlecchino. This is a good weapon for Arlecchino when she's being played with Emilie, but that really would only come into effect if you have 2 of these weapons. So I guess for that one person out there who doesn't have Arlecchino's signature, they don't have Mavuika's signature yet, and they really want it, they have an Emilie and may or may not have the signature for Emilie, and if you end up getting a second elegy, you can use it, a Lumidos elegy, you can use it on your Arlecchino for that one person in that exact situation. But generally speaking, people going for the Claymore, because it is the best generalist Claymore in the game by a large margin, you only get a mediocre stat stick in return. It's not the worst stat stick in the world. It gives base attack, crit rate, and a little bit of attack, but it's not nearly as universal as a bunch of other polearms we have, so it's not a horrible stat stick, but it's not great either. I think it's mostly here as like, you want to get the Claymore, you end up getting Emilie's weapon, you realize how good Emilie's weapon is for Emilie, and then it baits you into wanting to get Emilie. So to me, the whole banner is like a convoluted bait. It's like, it's very well crafted. It's like, IANSANE you want to use with Mavuika, and you don't, and you know, IANSANE works even better with Mavuika at C1, so you kind of want to go for it, and they're all good against the, and then Shankling and Emilie are so good against the Lava Dragon, and then that weapon's so good for Emilie, but not good in general. So if you get the weapon, you want to get Emilie, and Emilie is good against the Stygian Assault anyways, so you might as well keep going for it. You might as well just wish and wish and wish and wish on everything. And that seems to be, it's kind of like a multifaceted loop that Genshin is going for with this, but hey, you know, as long as you're actually aware of this and you know what's going on, the banners are good, right? They're some of the best banners we've had in a long time, especially for 4 stars. So as long as you're pulling with a plan, I'm happy to recommend these banners. Let me know if you're going for them, and subscribe if you want to see more. And if you don't want to do that, that is totally fine. Just watching the video has been more than enough. Thanks so much. Bye for now.